Here, the Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
Today, the famous Kraft TV cameraman focuses on outer space for another exciting adventure in the world beyond tomorrow.
Control deck to all stations. Stand by to raise ship. Blast off. Minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
October 1957, and the space age had begun with the launch of the first Soviet satellite, Sputnik.
The epical scientific achievement by Soviet Russia in beating the United States of America in the race to launch the first man-made moon has all humanity staring heavenward. For the miracle here simulated may have more profound implications than we mortals are ordinarily called on to grasp at once.
Until 2 days ago, that sound had never been heard on this earth. Suddenly, it has become as much a part of 20th century life as the whir of your vacuum cleaner. It's a report from man's farthest frontier, the radio signal transmitted by the Soviet Sputnik, the first man-made satellite as it passed over New York earlier today.
Man in the Street's reaction to Sputnik was, my God, how could they do it? They can't even build refrigerators. And it was really quite a terrible thing. And the man in the street didn't understand really the magnitude of what they had done. They put up a 186-pound spacecraft 2 months before we were supposed to put up a 4-pound one.
Would you admire the Russians for doing it or not?
No, definitely not. I said we should have been the first ones to have it, if there's such thing.
We fear this. We fear that they have something out that majority of the people don't know about.
What do you think about America not being able to do the same?
Well, if I was in military service and fell down on a job like that, I could stand a court-martial. Somebody's fallen down on a job, badly.
According to the latest Soviet announcement, the satellite is still maintaining its speed of 18,000 miles an hour, a dozen times faster than any man has ever flown. The event itself, the sudden Russian advance to the far frontier ahead of every other country, that event is full of meanings, clearest of all to scientists whose work is the exploration of space.
Not only did Sputnik's beeps signal the power of the Soviet Union to destroy America, after all, the next one might be carrying a nuclear warhead, it was also a propaganda coup for Russia.
From a more global point of view, editorial writers and others were saying this demonstrates great Russian technology, and technology from this closed communist society versus the technology in the United States in an open democratic society. So at that time in the Cold War period, with a sense of competing for the hearts and minds of uncommitted people around the world between two great political systems, the Sputnik was a real setback and a real embarrassment.
The politicians tried their best not to show their panic.
At his first Washington press parley since the news of the Soviet moon, President Eisenhower is asked if it wasn't a mistake to ignore the fact that we were in a race with Russia.
Well, no, I don't, because as even yet, let's remember this, the value of that satellite around the Earth, going around the Earth, is still problematical.
The Soviet Union has launched a second Earth satellite.
Only 1 month later, Russia had done it again. This time there was even more to be concerned about.
Obviously, the dog was in there because there was some biological interest. How does an organism behave in the absence of gravity, which was a big question at that time. And there were some people who were really concerned about this on a cerebral level because it showed that the Russians were thinking seriously about man in space when we were not thinking about it by order of President Eisenhower, who didn't believe in man in space. And then there were other people who could do such a thing to a dog.
This voiceless cry of mercy as this satellite spans the earth should be long remembered as a symbol of the torture the animal world must go through. And I don't mean to be facetious at all, but something to be remembered is that there's a female up there circling Mother Earth.
Mudnicks and mudnicks flying through the air. Mudnicks and mudnicks flying everywhere. They're so ironic. Are they atomic? Those funny missiles have got me scared.
My first reaction, I believe, is the normal reaction of every American. I'm disappointed.
And so at the moment we're waiting for the missile to leave the ground, and the next shot will be the Vanguard going aloft. It is hoped to carry the first U.S. satellite into orbit in outer space. Well, there's been an explosion on the launching pad, and the Vanguard has been disintegrated before it left the ground. So you have just witnessed what will undoubtedly be a severe propaganda defeat for this country.
There is a tremendous gap between promise and performance. I believe the American people want action and are demanding that we get going with our missile program.
Say, do you remember last week I promised to tell you today how to become a space cadet and get your official class ring and your shoulder patch? Well, we're not quite ready. I thought we would be, but we're not. But the things we're getting together for you are really going to be something. So watch for it next week, okay? Okay.
More and more teenagers are passing up rock and roll for a rocket roll. Sister Dunn Scotus, a physics teacher, supervises members of the Austin, Minnesota Rocket Society attempting to send a mouse aloft. Observers are safely stationed for the tense moments at the countdown.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We don't consider our failures as too great disappointments because we know that they're all necessary. We've had many failures, and we learn by each one of them, and we use what we learn to better our next project.
America had another go.
7, 6, 5.
The United States is ready to try and place its first Earth satellite into orbit. And there is a sudden tremendous burst of flame. We can see the Jupiter C missile on its way.
Our payload is only a fraction of what Sputnik 1 was, and a small fraction of Sputnik 2's 1,100 pounds payload weight in orbit. So, again, I can only repeat what I said before. We are competing only in spirit with Sputnik 2 so far, not in hardware yet.
Guardians of that pioneering spirit were America's first 7 astronauts, Cold War warriors who would protect the country against the evils that lurked in space. But before NASA risked the lives of their newest heroes, others were pressed into service.
It seems to me that a potato would be a very simple thing to put in space, because the potato has a very simple rhythm, a 24-hour rhythm. It doesn't have a complicated life pattern.
Questions raised by Dr. Brown are behind the Space Agency plan to shoot a potato into orbit. Dr. Brown is a biology professor at Northwestern University. Dr. Brown and the Space Agency have worked out plans to take a piece of an ordinary potato and place it into an ingenious space capsule. The capsule is nicknamed Sputnik 1.
If the potato cannot survive out of the Earth's sphere of influence, then I would be very, very cautious if I were concerned with the total problem of sending man out into outer space until I had found out what it was that the potato lacked in order to permit it to survive out there.
The astronauts continued to look the part, while others took the glory.
To the world
world at large, it is the Mercury program activity back at Cape Canaveral, Florida, that is most appealing from a human interest viewpoint. We say human interest advisedly, even though the hero of this space probe is Ham the Chimp. For is he not pioneering the program that one day in the very near future will see a human astronaut in orbit? Ham is not making his daring venture unprepared. He's been in training with a group of his fellows for months. And because he went to the head of his class, he's considered by his teachers as their most apt pupil for the job at hand. The quickest to learn how to operate the levers of his space capsule that will supply his wants while he's in flight.
We did have a good many American animals of various sorts. I mean, bunny rabbits and mice and things like that. Nobody really cares about that. We never sent a dog up. We never sent a cat up. We did send a monkey up, but we got the monkey back. That's very important.
And here's a new hero of exploration. But Ham seems to say, why the fuss? It's just a day's work. Epic monkey business.
That was the weather, and now a look at the news. Half an hour ago, the Russians announced that they'd put the first man into space. Space navigator is Major Yuri Gagarin. He's feeling well, and conditions in the cabin are normal.
As he looked down on the Earth from the loneliness of space, he streaked across Asia, Africa, and South America, controlling the pitch and roll of the ship. Shortly after the news was given of the flight, Tom German interviewed Sir Bernard Lovell at Jodrell Bank.
I think this is one of the greatest achievements in the history of mankind. It's remarkable when one realizes that this success has been achieved by a nation which a generation ago was largely illiterate.
This is Richard Dimbleby in the BBC television studio in London. You're looking, if you've just turned on your television sets today, at the first time, perhaps, to a live television picture from Soviet Russia. Here is a man who has done and seen things that no other living person has done or seen. Remember how he said yesterday that it's possible to see the remarkable, colorful change from the light surface of the Earth to the black of the sky. This transition from the blue to the dark is gradual and lovely. There's certainly enthusiasm, and I can well understand why they feel so enthusiastic.
Within the White House, advisors around the president thought that we should fly another chimp and or maybe two, and that Mercury was not quite ready and that we were pushing too hard. But the Gagarin flight, here again, America was a nation of first. And all of a sudden the Russians were the nature of the first with Sputnik, and they were first with Gagarin. It was very clear that the Russians were going to be first in almost everything.
But we should do everything possible to make any sacrifice to help our country get up there too. It means they're getting ahead of us, and we certainly need to start working hard to catch up.
I believe it's very impressive for propaganda purposes, but I think if we put our minds to it, that this country can top that in 6 months.
NASA certainly put their minds to it, but in contrast with the secretive Russians, their continuing problems were all too public.
We were testing the Mercury Redstone program in Escape Rocket Blue, and when it did, it took the capsule down to the beach, which was about several hundred yards down the beach, and it blew a big hole in the ground about 35 feet deep. Well, everyone, after we got time to get out of the blockhouse and a few things, everyone wandered down that way, And Alan Shepard was standing there, and he says, you guys have got to do a better job than this because I may be flying on the next one.
Are there any remarks you would like to make to the Boy Scouts of America?
Well, yes, I would like to make some remarks to all the Boy Scouts and all the Cubby Scouts in America. Boy Scouts of America, please don't let them do this to me.
We can see the ignition. The rocket's beginning to rise, agonizingly slowly. The astronaut has turned on his clock, and here we go. We're on our way into space with Alan B. Shepard. I'll join you in just a second on another microphone.
I want to again express my congratulations to Alan Shepard. We're very proud of him, Space Committee, who are with us today, and this decoration, which is going from the ground up here.
Relief that America had put a man in space, if only for 15 minutes, was palpable. The newly elected President Kennedy, who was still smarting from the Bay of Pigs fiasco, took up arms against the foe.
The dramatic achievements in space which occurred in recent weeks should have made clear to us all, as did the Sputnik in 1957, the impact of this adventure on the minds of men everywhere who are attempting to make a determination of which road they should take. I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish.
He supposedly asked, where can we get the most bang for the buck in this Cold War? And someone, I don't know who it was, suggested, I think somebody suggested him going to Mars. But fortunately, there were cooler heads, and they said, well, let's pull back from that and talk about the moon. And I think Kennedy was a pragmatist, and, he was a great wordsmith, and he mastered the phrases beautifully, and then said, this wonderful exploration, and let's go do this thing for science. Well, fiddlesticks, we did it to beat the Russians.
Having promised the moon, Kennedy made sure that goal was never far from the minds of the public. NASA became an institution with charisma, promising America a brighter, better future. Spurred on by the open support of the president, it was soon ready to compete in earnest. John Glenn prepared to become the first American to orbit the Earth.
Oil evacuate. Mercury umbilical clear. Mercury evacuate. Lights on. All recorders to fast. T-minus 18 seconds and counting engine start. May the wee ones be with you, Thomas. Good Lord, ride all the way. Godspeed, John Glenn. 10, 9,
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
Fine. Capsule is turning around. Oh, that view is tremendous. Roger, 7. You have a go. At least 7 orbits.
No signs of anxious days are evident as the family of the first American to orbit the Earth arrives for their reunion with the now famous head of their household. Vice President Johnson personally escorts the new American hero to the ending of the separation that has existed for almost a month. Younger generations are joined by an elder as Glenn's mother again embraces the child of her bosom. She and her husband, with the wife and the children, and Mrs. Glenn's parents, were flown here for the reunion by President Kennedy. Father and son exhibit manly restraint. Now, an honor reserved for heads of state, a Lindbergh, or victorious generals is shown Colonel Glenn. the privilege of addressing a joint session of Congress, and the lawmakers learn the astronaut is not only an expert on space, but a man of compelling modesty and lively wit.
I think after all of our talk about space, though, this morning coming up from Florida on the plane with President Kennedy, we had the opportunity to meet Mrs. Kennedy and Caroline before we took off. I think Caroline really cut us down to size and put us back in our proper position, though, when after being introduced, she looked up and said, "Where's the monkey?"
We love Swanky, Swanky the spaceman. He can do a lot of things nobody else can.
By the end of 1963, another 23 astronauts were selected to join the original 7. They were a PR dream for the space agency.
The media had its way. There would have been an astronaut interview every night on the evening news, and I think the big accusation that I faced was that they were not available enough. But America loved them, and rightly so. But, they were gung-ho test pilots. They were just about as good as the Beatles.
Adoration of the astronauts was only the tip of the iceberg. Space was now the fastest growing industry in the States, with millions of tax-free dollars being poured into developing the technology to land a man on the moon. Nowhere experienced the intense and crazy gold rush atmosphere more than the area around Cape Canaveral, as it turned from swampland to space world.
We are in one of the fastest growth areas in the nation here in the Cocoa area. That we have experienced a 370% population increase in this county alone within this last year. And the fact that the Cape Canaveral and the Patrick Air Force Base is spending so much money in the area, and we're in the fastest industrial growth area of the state of Florida.
Cocoa Beach became the playground for NASA's men and women as they carried the burden of a nation's dream.
The standard drill and marching orders for everyone over there seemed to be work hard, which God knows they did, and play hard, and they did both of those in just about equal measure. We had a story once, and this is corroborated, that some professional women, hookers, call girls, high-class types, came down from the east, New York, Boston, thereabouts, and they thought there would be great pickings there. And they went broke in a hurry because no one had to pay for anything on Cocoa Beach.
Got me a silver suit, and I'm gonna fly. Being that crazy rocket, heading way up in the sky. Flying with my man, coming down pretty soon. Watch out for that blast off, heading toward the moon. Call back to Canaveral, everything's A-OK, A-OK, A-OK.
That county, it had one of the highest divorce rates in the country. It had one of the highest venereal disease rates. It had one of the highest alcoholism rates. And grade school children were being put into therapy for psychiatric counseling, children of people in the space program. A number of druggists, and we did this story, said that they could tell within 3 days of a launch when it was coming, even the ones that were not announced, because there would be such a run on tranquilizers and sleeping pills. And the doctors prescribed. These people were under unbelievable stress to do this thing that Kennedy had ordered by the end of the decade.
Russia continued to pile on the pressure by sending the first woman, Valentina Tereshkova, into space.
I feel that we would have been way ahead of them had we started at the time they started.
Then the Soviets put the first crew in space.
I
would say, as General de Gaulle said on the Second War, France has lost a battle, not the world.
And then they pioneered the spacewalk.
It's just terrific. I'm sure we'll do something just as good or better soon.
With Project Gemini, America had the answers, and by the mid-60s, space had become the greatest show on Earth.
Separate from the spacecraft. This is the greatest experience I've just remembered.
The flight director says get back in.
Jim, what? Got any message for us?
Chimney 4, get back in.
Okay.
It would be difficult to overstate what it means to the American space effort to be starting the Apollo program with Gemini experience already available to us. We will open the manned flight phase of the Apollo program with a seasoned team with lettermen at key positions.
We interrupt our regular programming to bring you this special report. Here's ABC Science Editor Jules Bergman.
Top space agency officials are flying to Cape Kennedy tonight to begin the official investigation into what caused the flash fire that killed the nation's first 3 Apollo astronauts earlier tonight. Lieutenant Colonel Gus Grissom, 42, Lieutenant Colonel Ed White, 36, and Lieutenant Commander Roger Chaffee, 31, all died in moments, trapped inside their Apollo 1 spacecraft on top of Pad 34 when it was swept by a flash fire. They died at T-minus 10 minutes into a simulated launch countdown, helplessly trapped inside their spacecraft.
Susan and I and our boys were having dinner right outside of Huntsville, Texas, at a very remote spot with some friends. And all of a sudden, while we were in the midst of dinner, a highway patrolman, state policeman, knocked on the door and asked for me.
Grissom, White, and Chaffee were inside their inflated suits, and the hatches of the craft were bolted shut.
The highway patrolman said, there's been a fire at Cape Kennedy, and NASA is trying to get in touch with you. And at that moment, we didn't know how severe it was. But after Frank made the call, we knew that they were gone.
Each had a wife and 2 children waiting for him. They planned to spend the remainder of the weekend with their families. Now their bodies are lying at an infirmary in Cape Kennedy, and the families are in seclusion in Houston.
We knew there was going to be a test at that time, see. But Mike Collins called me that night, and there'd been an accident, and I said, well, Roger's all right. He says, no, he's gone, see.
Roger was so energetic, so enthusiastic about the whole program. We're sure that as long as he had to leave this world, he's happy in a spaceship anyway.
No anger at what's down at Cape Kennedy? What will continue? What will follow?
None whatsoever. The price of progress comes high at times.
The space agency and the public wanted to believe that death had been instantaneous, but the astronauts' last moments had been recorded.
The first thing you heard was Ed White's voice saying, "Fire on the spacecraft." And then he said immediately, "It's a bad fire." Then I could hear some nondescript talking in the back, which I decided was Gus Grissom giving directions as to how to deal with it. And there was a piercing scream as an oxygen line was cut. And when you have an oxygen line cut, which is venting oxygen, that's what welders call acetylene torches. And if you can imagine that thing whipping around in the capsule like a snake, and it literally almost beheaded one of the crew members. It was a horrible 90 seconds before they lost consciousness. And
do you ever think of the fact that you can get killed flying spacecraft?
Well, we recognize that we can get killed flying spacecraft, like we can get killed flying T-33s or T-38s or driving my Corvette. That's just one of the facts of life for everyone. But we have a job that is very fascinating, that we're very interested in, and it's worth the risk.
I don't want to sound cold or anything, because certainly I missed, particularly Ed White was the closest friend I had on that
fire, but it was just, it was one of the things. There's an old saying, you got to expect losses in a fighter squadron, and this was a loss.
Oh, I'd say, well, that wouldn't happen to Frank. He's much too brilliant. He's much too good. He's much too strong. Well, that poor devil killed himself. That would never happen to Frank. Frank would do this, Frank would do that. He couldn't get out of it. Well, the fire made me realize, oh, no, I'm sorry, Susan. Frank couldn't have gotten out of the fire. And so for the first time, I had to awaken to the fact that, yes, I was probably going to take my turn.
Chafee rises to receive the flag that covered her husband's casket. And President Johnson goes over to express his condolences.
For months there, the heavy feeling that you have in your chest will not leave. And it never leaves, but you learn to live with it. And you have the satisfaction in your mind of knowing, at least, he contributed a great deal to society and civilization and mankind. He did something good before he died.
Investigations revealed that not only had the fire occurred in a pure oxygen environment, but the capsule was full of flammable material and the escape hatch would have taken at least 3 minutes to open. In its race to put a man on the moon, NASA had been complacent about these potential hazards.
NASA tried to wiggle out of that thing. I think one of the most despicable things they did in 35 years of history was to try to blame it on a dead man, the crew. They said, well, there must have been a loose wire in there somewhere, and one of the astronauts kicked it, and it made a spark and started the fire. And of course, they had no good answer to the follow-up question, was what was a loose wire doing in a spacecraft that was supposedly ready for launch?
Frank Borman supervised over 4,000 changes that were made to the spacecraft before men flew in it again. The episode of the fire was finally closed when NASA admitted culpability at a congressional hearing.
Basically just went in and said, look, we made a mistake. We lost 3 lives. We're sorry. We think we understand why. Now we want to press on.
There was tremendous urgency to get to the moon. And yes, we're going to kill a few people getting there, but that's part of it. Just like when you're in the Air Force, you're going to kill a few people here, there, and yon, but that's part of it. And you learn to live with that. I didn't like it. And I was certainly a scaredy cat by myself. I mean, I have often wondered, quite frankly, what the outside world, meaning my friends, my family, and my husband, would have thought of me cowering at night crying. Keeping all this to you kept it to yourself. I don't care how lonely you are. I don't care how frightened. You kept it to yourself. All you did was say, of course, dear, get on with it. And then, yes, I may go home and cry for a week over it, but tough.
Less than 10 months ago, tragedy here at Cape Kennedy rocked this nation's space program, set back our moon landing schedule by as much as a year, and set loose doubts about sending men into space at all. Today, the nation rejoices and hopes rise again that John Kennedy's goal of putting an American on the moon by 1970 will be realized.
This is the big shot, the ride without astronauts of the giant Saturn V rocket. Project Apollo. This is Apollo 4, the test of our moon rocket in flight for the first time. It is the beginning, the first of many steps which will someday put men on the surface of the moon.
Good morning. Behind me is the largest single object man has ever attempted to lift off the face of the Earth. Its official designation is Saturn V. It stands as tall as a 36-story building, and though it is unmanned for this flight, this is the monster rocket with which America ultimately will place men on the moon.
10, 9, ignition sequence start. 5, 4, we have ignition.
All engines are running. We have liftoff. We have liftoff at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The tower has...
My God, our building's shaking here. Our building's shaking. The roar is terrific. The building's shaking. This big glass window is shaking. We're holding it with our hands. Look at that rocket go into the clouds at 3,000 feet. The roar is terrific. Look at it going. You can see it. You can see it. Part of our roof has come in here.
We don't know if you can hear, ladies and gentlemen, but all the flight is moving along as it should be, but our observation booth here, the NBC observation booth, is literally being shaken apart. Our tape recorders are being thrown to the floor by the roar of this mighty rocket as it continues to climb into the sky on its 7.5 billion pounds of thrust. It is a beautiful sight, an unbelievable sight.
Frank, there's just never been anything like it. The Titan II that powered Gemini, the Mercury Atlas that powered John Glenn in our early orbital flights, they looked impressive at the time. But not until you felt your flesh vibrate and your desk lift and your body thunder with the vibration from that rocket going could you sense the excitement. It's just bigger, and it worked better the first time than anything we've ever used. The spacecraft is now well into its first revolution around the Earth, and a historic flight well underway. Frank?
Thank you very much, Jules. I know you've had a very pleasant morning. Well, Apollo 4 is on the way, and the mission apparently seems to be going well. I think for NASA and for America's space program, you can say, oh, what a beautiful morning this has been. This is Frank Reynolds in New York.
In 1961, President John F. Kennedy committed, as far as anyone could commit, the Americans to having a man on the moon by 1970. Today, from Cape Kennedy, the cape that bears the President's name, a vital, crucial, exciting step is being made to the realization of that objective, that goal. The plan today, in some 35 minutes from now, is to put 3 men in orbit around the moon 10 times, and they will see that 40% of the moon that man has never set eyes on before.
The Apollo 8 astronauts, Borman, Lovell and Anders, were about to take the most crucial gamble in the history of space exploration.
I thought, okay, I'd better get on with learning how to be a very sophisticated widow, because I think now is going to be my turn. Now I think I'm going to have a turn. And if Frank wants me to do the job well, I had better grow up and do it well. Because if they get these 3 men up there and trapped around the moon, this is going to be a first-class zoo.
Let us go now and join Michael Charlton at the Cape.
Michael Charlton, what's the weather like?
At Cape Kennedy, it's a wonderful day for a wonderful event, the first manned flight to the moon. Dawn has just broken here about half an hour ago, And just look at this awe-inspiring sight behind here, the great moon rocket ready on its pad. Like a great cathedral tower of ice, it's looked here all night and just fading now in the morning light.
This was only the second time we had flown that Block II spacecraft manned. We were using the entire Saturn V vehicle, so it was a major test of the all-up space system. We had new teams that all of a sudden, in very short order, we said, hey, let's not fly in Earth orbit, let's go and fly to the moon in Apollo 8.
8:51, 8:49 until launch. Everything goes well at Cape Kennedy. We're now at the moment when there is no really going back.
You've already accepted the risk when you accept the mission. But once you get there, it's just like everything else that I've ever done. I want to do it well.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about, I mean, they're not going to die right away. He's going to be up there thinking about what is going on, knowing he's going to die, but he's not dead. And what are the families doing? And would he talk to me? Would he allow me to talk to him? Would he want to say goodbye? Would he say goodbye to the boys? And I would think, gee, God, it'd be neat if I didn't love him so much. You know, I really want that guy back.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have commit. We have liftoff. Liftoff at 7:51 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have cleared the tower.
Roger. Howdy here, Houston. Loud and clear. Mode 1 Bravo, Apollo 8. Mode 1B. Apollo 8, Houston, what does the old moon look like from 60 miles, over?
Okay, Houston, the moon is essentially gray. No color. Looks like plaster of Paris. Or sort of a grayish beach sand. Moon is a different thing to each one of us. I know my own impression is that it's a vast, lonely, forbidding type existence or expanse of nothing. Loneliness up here on the moon is awe-inspiring, and it makes you realize just what you have back there on Earth.
Sir Bernard, what did you think of that?
I must confess, I thought it was really quite extraordinary. It was one of the most remarkable few minutes that I've ever lived through. The realization that there was a human being there, only 60 or 70 miles above the lunar surface, giving that really quite wonderful description of what he was seeing.
And nobody would deny, presumably, that we will eventually leave the Earth and venture out into the universe. Therefore, this step is absolutely necessary.
And one thing I would like to make here, if I may, there has been suggestions, I know, that this is a mere publicity stunt. This is part of scientific history, James. This is a part of our heritage. And it would be criminal not to broadcast it as fully as we can.
Yes.
Up until that time, it was just another missile, another mission, another missile, another mission. But this was this was like science fiction when that one occurred.
Gentlemen, all in all, an extraordinary and satisfying morning, would you say?
I think that's the understatement of the year, or in fact the understatement of any century.
I think it's a well-deserved victory for this country because it's been a long time in coming, and there are so many thousands of people that gave their lives to make this possible, and I think the free people of the world are going to benefit by this with stories that will be told for a long, long time.
You've taken all over the world into a new era. My thoughts this morning went back to more than 10 years ago when we saw Sputnik racing through the skies, and we realized that America had a big job ahead of it. It gave me so much pleasure to know that you men have done a large part of that job.
I think Apollo 8 was important because it really focused, the first flight that focused on the moon, not the Earth. And I think all of a sudden people began to realize this spacecraft is designed to go to the moon.
We were the explorers. We were the discoverers. And this whole thing fit together. And then you add Christmas time into this equation. And the fact that we were one step further to our milestone, which was now to put man on the moon. It was a miraculous time at Christmas Eve.
For all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you on the good earth.
It was the eve of the launch of Apollo 11. Commander of the mission was Neil Armstrong, a 38-year-old civilian from a small Midwestern town. Considered to be reserved, introverted, and a brilliant test pilot, Armstrong would be first to set foot on the lunar surface.
Tomorrow, we, the crew of Apollo 11, are privileged to represent the United States in our first attempt to take man to another heavenly body.
Edwin Buzz Aldrin would descend with Armstrong to the moon. Aldrin was an intense high achiever, a fighter pilot who had flown 66 combat missions in Korea, a mathematician, and the only astronaut with a doctorate. Michael Collins was destined never to walk on the moon. As pilot of the command module, he would remain orbiting the moon until Armstrong and Aldrin returned. He knew that if anything happened on the lunar surface, he would have to come home alone.
I do have one complaint, however. I'd like to point out to those of you, particularly in the television business, that I have no TV set on board, and therefore I'm going to be one of the few Americans who's not going to be able to see the EVA, so I'd like you to save the tapes for me, please. I'd like to look at them after the flight.
I feel privileged to be alive with all of the other billions of people on this earth on this date when this huge thing is going on. In future generations, other races of people, other generations of people will look back to this summer and say, oh, how wonderful it must have been to have been alive then when this huge step, which ensures a victory over time and space and eternity for all of us. How wonderful to have been alive when that happened.
I remember coming into work that morning. There were 1 million to 2 million people in a 25-mile radius of the Space Center. People were lying in the streets. There was no more bread, no more milk, no groceries. Everyone that I'd ever heard of, I think I had about 20 visitors that showed up at my house because there was no place to stay. And I told my wife she had to take care of all 20 people because I was going to be gone for the next 24 hours. And So coming in, you begin to get the realization that something was getting ready to happen. It was momentous. I reflected as I came by early in the morning, the fact that all was swampland and farming land, and that used to be orange groves there, big. You looked at the pad, you saw the Saturn V out there, it was big. I began to reflect on the fact that we were getting ready to do something big.
Here we are, on the 16th day of July, about to send 3 men to the moon, 2 to actually walk on it. It's difficult for any of us, really, to grasp this fantastic idea, but this date, July 16th, will be written in history that all men will know about from this day forward.
I remember the searchlights arced over the vehicle, looked like a cathedral. And all our checkouts had worked. In a strange way, would think of, Columbus' ship setting out from Spain, heading for a world he didn't know exactly what it was going to be like. But we were setting out on a new venture. We had done our preparations. The next step had to be taken. There was questions, could you land on the moon? We'd been near the moon, we'd been around it. But now, could you land on it? There were still unknowns. You knew you were facing unknowns.
The 3 suited up in the astronauts' quarters, ready to board the van for the 8-mile drive to the launch pad.
They take with them this morning the good wishes and the admiration of a world of people. As man, a species born and who's lived all his life on Earth, moves with this journey out into the solar system, and so, presumably, begins with this journey his dispersal in other places out in the universe.
I had a period of about maybe 30 minutes standing by myself on the launch tower, almost near the top, not quite to the spacecraft, but there wasn't another human being close at sight, and I could see the waves coming in, the sun slowly rising, and see the evidence, the parked cars of all the people out watching our launch 3, 5, 10 miles away, just millions of people. And it was quite a symbolic moment that I said to myself, hey, Buzz, you better remember this one.
This is Apollo Saturn Launch Control. We've just passed the 31-minute mark in our count. The T-minus 30 minutes, 52 seconds and counting. The lunar module on Apollo 11, of course, when it separates from the command module in lunar orbit, will have the call sign Eagle. Both Columbia and Eagle are go at this time at 29 minutes, 24 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control.
It has to be over 100 degrees here in the broiling Florida sun, where the VIPs, the very important persons, and indeed the VVIPs, the very, very important persons, are gathered to watch this launch just downrange. Among them here are former President Johnson, who helped to shape the space program as Senate Majority Leader, the new Vice President, Mr. Agnew, who has already stirred a controversy by suggesting that this administration commit itself to sending a man to Mars by the end of the century.
It was, by definition, the greatest story of the century. I was at the press site. There were at least 1,000 people there. Probably 500 of them were duly accredited, and the rest of them were hangers-on. Little old ladies, unclassified weirdos of one sort or another. A governor of one of our states and a rock star were there, hand in hand, watching it.
To say it was electric is a cliche. It was more than that. But it was exciting, it was absorbing, and everyone was caught up in the moment. And everyone thought that anything was doable, anything was possible. And it almost was.
At this moment, millions of Frenchmen are glued to their television sets
to watch the launching of Apollo 11.
But the war keeps no regular business hours, so there were plenty of soldiers up all night, watching for Viet Cong, but listening to the progress of Apollo 11.
At his summer residence at Castel Gandolfo, Pope Paul VI is following the Apollo 11 mission with intense personal interest.
The Pope recalled that as a boy, he read Jules Verne's book, From the Earth to the Moon. About the book, he said, that was the kingdom of fantasy, a prophetic fantasy perhaps, but gratuitous, unreal. Today, however, we are in the kingdom of reality.
We're now 14 minutes, 30 seconds and counting. This is Kennedy Launch Control.
A civil rights march, a mule train representing the poor and dispossessed, had made its way to the gates of Cape Kennedy to protest at the nation's priorities. NASA officials came out to meet them.
We walked across this field, which seemed to me to be a plain of battle, and the mule trains and the participants were coming toward us. And it seemed to be so out of character with all the technology that was around us.
The American government at that time had spent $24 billion on the exploration of outer space. $24 billion. Now, for the last 3 years, they had spent $3 billion. $3 billion would have fed every hungry person in America.
We are here to say that what we can do for space and exploration, we must do, and we demand that we do the very same for starving poor people.
Okay, Jules, we're getting close. We're getting close.
This is Apollo Saturn Launch Control. We passed the 6-minute mark in our countdown for Apollo 11. Now 5 minutes, 52 seconds and counting. Launch Director Rocco Petrone now gives the go with 5 minutes, 20 seconds and counting.
You're going through your final replenishment cycle, make sure you got the amount of fuel on board. You then start pressurizing, you start going through steps, leading right up to the moment of commitment, what I refer to as the moment of truth.
The vehicle starting to pressurize as far as the propellant tanks are concerned, and all is still go. Computer supervises hundreds of events occurring over these last few minutes. 2 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. Oxidizer tanks in the second and third stages now have pressurized.
We had all these umbilical arms. We had like 10 different umbilical arms that weighed tons each. We're all linked to it.
The swing arm now coming back as our countdown continues. Skip Chauvin informing the astronauts that the swing arm now coming back.
And then all of a sudden, when all the arms were back, you realized that they were sitting there by themselves. The next closest person was at least 5 miles away, and they were sitting on millions of gallons of propellant.
Neil Armstrong reported back when he received the good wishes. Thank you very much. We know it will be a good flight.
I mean, there's no turning back once that rocket lifted off, and this was the moment, and it was getting very close to getting down to T-minus 0.
All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
Most people base their thoughts of what a launch is like on what they see in the movies. The transition from being on the ground to actually in motion was so gentle that none of us really, other than hearing the count go to 0 and someone saying liftoff, and we could see the instruments begin to change, that would start to change at liftoff. Other than that, there wasn't a great physical sensation at all.
Flame still hitting the launcher, roughly 300 or so feet beneath it. And the vibration then hits the control center and the windows start to shake. And great feeling, but also the apprehension is there. Yes, we had reached the moment that really the world had waited for.
Tower cleared.
There's really nothing to say about it. What can you say about a site like that?
We got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading. Apollo 11 Houston, you're good at 1 minute. Downrange 1 mile, altitude 4 miles now.
Balance up low. Stay down there.
1,000 feet high, 80 feet per second vertical rise.
And a minute or so after that unbelievable event, the astronauts are talking to the ground and reporting on the facts and figures of the flight. And somebody here a minute ago was saying they are as matter of fact and unexcited and calm as if they were taxicab drivers reporting in and saying we're on Maple Street headed for downtown.
11 Houston, you are go at 4 minutes.
With the spacecraft safely on its way, control of the flight passed from the launch team to mission control in Houston, Texas. For the next 8 days, the control room would run the mission in 3 teams.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. Trajectory and guidance look good, and the stage is good. Over. Apollo 11, Roger. 35,000 feet per second. Cut off.
Flight director of the White team was Gene Kranz, nicknamed by his controllers General Savage.
This was the world's greatest adventure, and we were participants in this thing. We were truly making it happen.
In the front of the control room, in what was known as the trench, sat Steve Bales. He was controller of navigation and guidance, Guido for short.
Even though we were young, 24, 25, 26, I was 26, we were the only experience anybody had in manned spaceflight, monitoring it. So people would come to the control center and say, what are all these kids doing here?
Stand by for mode 4 capability. Mode 4. Mark, mode 4 capability.
We were very well aware that we could change not only the course of missions, the course of our programs, but possibly the course of history through the decisions we made. And we were willing to do that.
Using the service propulsion system.
ADQ 602 up here.
Altitude is 100 miles, downrange 883 miles.
ADQ 602.
All communication between mission control and the Apollo 11 crew went through the capsule communicator, or Capcom. In this key role was Charlie Duke, himself an astronaut.
You know, the astronauts got the glory. They were the ones riding. They were the ones in the spacecraft. But without that team of people that was pyramided under them, you couldn't do it alone. There were 400,000 people supporting those 3 men going to the moon. And everybody had their job, and everybody had to do it correctly, or it wasn't going to work.
Houston, thrust is go. All engines, you're looking good.
Hi, Roger. You're loud and clear.
Within a few minutes of leaving Earth, 97% of Apollo 11's huge mass had been shed.
We got skirt depth.
Roger, we confirm skirt depth.
Tower's gone.
Roger, tower.
Neil Armstrong confirming both the engine skirt separation and the launch escape tower separation.
Yeah, Houston, Apollo 11 and Saturn gave us a magnificent ride.
Roger, 11, we'll pass that on, and it certainly looks like you're well on your way now.
After 1.5 orbits of the Earth came a critical stage. The engine burned again for translunar injection to break Apollo 11 free of Earth's gravity and set it on course for the Moon. For the astronauts, it was the point of no return. Their 3-day voyage to the Moon had begun.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. Thrust is good. Everything's still looking good.
Roger.
29,000 feet per second, building up toward.
As we were moving away from the Earth was the first opportunity that Neil and Mike had to look outside and see the Earth, and see the Earth getting smaller and smaller. And this was after we'd been established in a slow rotation of about 1 or 2 revolutions per minute, so that the heat from the sun would even out as the spacecraft turned around slowly. We'd see the Earth and the Moon and the sun, one by one, move through the windows.
Very well. We have not been able to visually pick up the Hawaiian island chain, but we can clearly see the United States, California, and Mexico down as far as Acapulco. It looks good on the monitor. But we have no intention of competing with the professionals, believe me. You'll never beat out the Thunderbird.
10 hours into the mission, and more than 60,000 miles from home, the crew began the first of their daily television transmissions from space.
We are very comfortable up here, though. We do have a happy home. There's plenty of room for the 3 of us. The Zero G is very comfortable, but after a while you get to the point where you sort of get tired of rattling around and banging off the ceiling and the floor and the side, so you tend to find a little corner somewhere and put your knees up or something like that to wedge yourself in, and that seems more at home. Roger. Hey, that's a great shot right there. We see you in there. Guess that's Neil and Mike. Better be, anyway.
We had a TV show, and so the crew turned on the camera, and I'm sitting there watching on those big screens in Mission Control, and there's this, looked like the Earth to me, and I said to Buzz, he was holding the camera, I said, "Buzz, that's a fantastic view of the Earth." It was sort of dead silence, and he said, "Charlie, you're looking at the Moon."
I was going to show you how you drink water out of a spoon, but I'm afraid I filled the spoon too full, and if I'm not careful, I'm going to spill water right over the sides. Can you see the water slopping around in the top of the spoon, kid? That's affirmative, 11. That really is water, though, I'll show you. I'll show you, I hope, how easy it is to make some ham from Zero-G.
Astronauts and flight crew people always said, look, our job is not to be performers for the media. What do you want? Do you want us to be successful astronauts, or do you want us to be performers? And what we essentially, well, I'd never liked the word performers, we essentially said, you've got 2 jobs. One is to do your job, and the other is to describe to the world and let the world understand what your job is. And also, we constantly said, the American people are paying for this, and they have a right to know how their money is being spent.
On each side, we have the 2 helmet visors. Okay, you did say this was going out now, didn't you? 11, you got a pretty big audience. It's live in the U.S., it's going live to Japan, Western Europe, and much of South America. Everybody reports very good color. Appreciate the great show. As we pan back out to the distance at which we see the Earth. We'll have Apollo 11 signing off.
As the 19th of July began, the work of 500,000 people over 8 years was to be put to the test.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. I've got the morning news here if you're interested, over. Yeah, we sure are. We're ready to copy and comment. Okay, looks like it's going to be impossible to get away from the fact that you guys are dominating all the news back here in Earth. Even Pravda in Russia is headlining the mission and calls Neil the czar of the ship. I think maybe they got the wrong mission.
The spacecraft is now about 1,000 miles from the moon. Jules, this is where it becomes very, very interesting, right?
Right, Frank. About 19 minutes from now, Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins will fire up their big SPS, or Service Propulsion System engine, to slow Apollo 11 so that it's captured by the moon's gravity.
Delta VT.
It's a tricky time. Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins are on their own. Behind the moon, we can't hear them. Mission Control can't hear or see them.
00.
The approach had worked, but success depended on the lunar descent, and this is where the journey into the real unknown began.
00.
The excitement and the enthusiasm we all faced that day with, and that shift on the white team was remarkable. I had been in Mission Control many times before, but this was going to be a real unique event.
The actual descent was, to me, one of the most challenging periods of my life and my team's life.
Apollo 11 was now hugging the underside of the moon just 60 miles from the surface. The combined spaceship went behind the moon for the last time.
Plus 000 9 or 8. Plus, correction, 00572.
Houston has just told Apollo 11, we'll see you on the other side. They are not, as everybody knows by now, a very talkative crew. They said, we'll see you on the other side, and the response from Apollo 11 was, okay.
The last time they went around the moon, they would be gone for 40 minutes. The next time we saw them, we would have 15 minutes to check everything out, and then they were going to fire up that engine, and we were on our way to landing. About 10 minutes prior to acquisition of signal, I heard this announcement in the control center. It said, all flight controllers put on your headsets and come up on the spatial briefing loop. And we all came on a loop, and it was just quiet, silence. And then Gene Kranz comes on the loop, and he says, in 10 minutes, we're going to start something nobody's ever done before. He gave a speech after that General Patton would have liked to have given.
I knew no one could overhear us, and I proceeded to talk to the team very briefly about how proud I was of them, how proud I was of them as a team, and that no matter what happened on this particular day, I would be very proud of the way he performed.
And then he said something I think that meant more to me and everybody of the young flight control team than he could have possibly said. He said, but no matter what happens, I'm going to be behind you when we walk out of this room. And you're 26. You don't have a family here. You know, what would happen? Who's going to be behind you? Who's going to be with you? That meant a lot, really meant a lot.
Now we were going to terminate our conversation on this loop, and we were going to go to the moon.
Okay, let's go there, Capcom on the hot fire. Okay, all flight controllers going around the horn, gonna go for undocking.
Okay, retro, go. Fido, go. Guide, go. Control, go. Telcom, go. GNC, go. Ecom, go. Surgeon, go.
Capcom, we're go for undocking.
Green, you're loud and clear. Houston, LA.
Over. Roger, Eagle, undock.
Roger, how does it look?
The Eagle has wings.
Roger. You're a go to continue power descent.
Roger. Altitude 40,000.
Okay, all flight controllers, go, no, go for landing. Retro. Go. Fido. Go. Guidance. Go. Control. Go. Telcom. Go. GNC. Go. Ecom. Go. Surgeon. Go. Capcom, we're go for landing. Altitude 4,200.
Houston, you're a go for landing, over. Roger, understand. Go for landing. 3,000 feet. You're looking great.
How you doing, Control?
We look good here, fine.
Roger, how about you, Telcom? Go. Guidance, you happy?
Go.
Fido.
Go. 2,000 feet. 2,000 feet.
And then we had all kinds of problems. And I found out that I almost was going to have to call an abort right off the bat because we had a velocity error. The computer was not understanding how fast it was going toward the lunar surface.
6 plus 25, throttle down. 6 plus 25, throttle down.
That velocity now reading 760.
Fortunately, we had a landing radar on the vehicle, and as it got to the point it could see the moon, it told the computer, hey, you're coming in a little fast, sort of gentled things out. I thought, boy, this is our big problem for the day. 30 seconds later, I hear this ominous program alarm, 1201.
1201. Program alarm. 1201. Roger, 1201 alarm.
1201 alarm.
And all of a sudden an alarm comes on and it says program alarm. Well, what does that mean? We don't know. We look at the numbers and it says some numbers. Now those numbers are in a checklist that's somewhere over here, but we didn't feel we had the time, so we immediately asked the ground controllers in Houston what was the meaning of that program alarm.
Buzz said, we got a 1201 alarm or 1202, whatever it was. My heart sank. I said, what is he talking about, 1202? I didn't have the foggiest clue, and I said, uh-oh.
Houston, give us a reading on the 1202 program alarm.
Which meant, do you want us to continue? Do you want us to stop? That was my job. I was in charge of the computers. I had to figure out if we were going to continue or we were going to stop.
1202. 1202. Roger, we copy.
Looked around at everything I had. Speed was okay. Guidance commands were okay. The alarm hadn't happened for 30 seconds and didn't happen again. So I made a decision to go, and I said go as loud as I could to the flight director.
Just then Steve Bales came up and said, we're go on that alarm flight. And I didn't really have a clue of what the alarm meant, but I just didn't even wait for Krantz to say anything. And I said, we're go, Eagle.
Same type, we're go, flight.
Okay, we're go.
We're go, same type, we're go. Eagle looking great. 750, coming down to 23. 540 feet and a 15. 10 and 50 feet down at 4.
45 seconds later, we get another program alarm. I looked, I said, oh no, is this thing going to start coming too fast, too often? But again, it was one occurrence, single occurrence, everything else okay. Speed okay, guidance commands okay. Made a decision to keep going.
Roger, we got you. We're going at alarm. Roger. They're 400 feet down at 9, 47 forward. You're looking great to us, Eagle.
Finally, I guess it was a minute or so before landing, and I'd given this rambling conversation, and Deke reached over and punched me in the side gently and said, Charlie, shut up and let them land.
200 feet, 4.5 down, 5.5 down, 15 forward, 60 seconds.
Both of us heard the call out of 60 seconds, and we said, okay, that's expected. We didn't expect to have landed before the 60 seconds, but we thought we might have been on the ground before we got 30 seconds. So when we heard 30 seconds, by that time the low-level light had already come on. We knew that we had to get on the ground shortly, and there wasn't any point of my telling Neil that because I knew he knew that too.
Everybody was holding their breath. You could hear a pin drop in mission control. I mean, it was dead silence. The tension was so thick you could feel like you could carve a piece out with the knife, and because we were running out of gas.
Lights on. 100 feet, 3.5 down, 9 forward. Okay, 75 feet. Guys looking good, down a half. 6 forward. 30 seconds. Lights on. Forward. Forward. 40 feet down, 2.5. Picking up some dust. Straight shadow. 4 forward, drift into the right a little. Contact light.
Okay, engine stop.
413 is in.
We copy you down, Eagle.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Roger, Eagle, and you are safe for T1. Over. Eagle, you are safe for T1.
Roger.
And we're
safe for T1.
Roger, and we...
I remember just sort of leaning over and patting Neil on the back, and I don't remember whether I winked or not, but we looked at each other and smiled, and we sort of said to each other, we finally made it, or we did make it successfully, and congratulate each other.
Special announcement. You will be happy to know that Apollo 11 has landed safely.
The announcer broke into to say that Neil Armstrong had just landed on the moon. There were about, I think, 53,000 people in the stands that day, and they all stood up without being asked, and someone started singing "America the Beautiful." And everyone cried. It was an unforgettable moment. To this day, it's an unforgettable moment.
Go! Ha toccato! Toccato il suo lunare.
Ask you why you came here to watch this?
I had no TV of my own, but it was also wanting to be part of humanity at a moment like this.
What did you think when you watched it?
How wondrous God was to let us go so far, and so safely and so well. And I'm so proud to be an American.
It's disgusting. It's a pity they haven't got something else to do.
You're not excited about this trip at all?
Not excited at all. No. Be better if they'd done something for the old uns instead of doing this.
If they do it... Oh, here comes Mrs. Armstrong out of her home. Let's go to Texas.
Thank you very much.
Moment of your life, isn't it? Touchdown?
No, when I was married, that was the greatest moment of my life.
Do you have any inkling what he's going to say? He wouldn't tell us when he steps out on the moon.
No, I have no idea what he's going to say, but whatever he says, I'm sure it will be worthwhile.
Armstrong must be beginning that very cumbersome and difficult act of getting down on his stomach to go out feet first. At most, unless he really takes his time, it should be no more than a minute and a half to 2 minutes from now.
Just before 4 a.m. on the 21st of July, British audiences joined 600 million people around the world to watch Neil Armstrong take the first steps on the moon.
Here it goes. Here goes the Mesa with a television camera on it. There is Armstrong.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
Okay, I just checked getting back up to that first step. It's a pretty good little jump. I'm at the foot of the ladder. The limb footbeds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches.
We didn't put that much significance on the first words on the moon. Obviously, we were wrong. The world wanted to know what we were going to say.
Yeah, I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
I thought, I wonder if Armstrong understands what he's done today. Then I thought, a man who is as smart, intelligent, and as trained as he is to be an astronaut obviously knows what he's done and how he will be remembered by history. Yes, he did know. And I think that what he said in his understated way is going to be around as long as language is around.
If it had been up to me to say the most important words of the mission in retrospect, instead of Neil, and if I'd known that they were going to end up being that important, I certainly would have consulted the best advice that I could possibly have gotten, and it would have been my business between me and that person, and I would have adjusted whatever it is, and it would have become my words. If that's what Neil did, fine. If he dreamed them up himself, then he did a marvelous job, because I think they were very appropriate things to say.
Tell me if you got a picture, Houston. Well, you got a beautiful picture, Neil. Okay, I'm going to move it. Okay, there's another good one.
As soon as we landed on the moon and had a chance to look out my window and then his window and then, whatever else we could sort of crane our necks around and see where we were, there wasn't much to see. I mean, there were a few isolated boulders and a few undulating craters of smoothed over depressions in the ground, but there certainly wasn't anything remarkable about the surface.
And I want to know if you can see an angular rock in the foreground. Roger, we have a large angular rock in the foreground, and looks like a much smaller rock a couple of inches to the left of it. Over. The surface is fine and powdery. I can pick it up loosely with my toe.
While Buzz Aldrin prepared to climb down to join his fellow astronaut, Armstrong collected a sample of lunar dust in case the mission had to be aborted early.
We didn't know what the porosity of the moon was. There was many theories that it was dust many feet thick and that we might settle right through. And if you remember, the bottom step was quite a ways off the ground, and there was a lot of argument about how high should the bottom step of the lunar excursion module be in case it sunk down in the dust.
Okay, I'm going to leave that 1 foot up there, and there you go. Okay, now I think I'll do the same. A little more. About another inch. There, you got it? That's a good step. Yep. About a 3-footer. Beautiful view. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here. Magnificent desolation. Yeah, radio loud and clear. How's it going? Roger, the EVA is progressing beautifully. I believe they're setting up the flag now. Great.
We requisitioned a flag from the stockroom down at Johnson Space Center, and the price on it was $5.50. A standard 3-by-5 foot American flag, nylon.
Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface.
You could extend it tightly to the end and have a rather stiff-looking flag, artificial-looking, or you could back it up about 3 or 4 inches and put a ripple in the flag. And once we achieved that, we realized that's what we want. That looks like it's flying on the moon, and it did.
Tranquility Base, this is Houston. Could we get both of you on the camera for a minute, please? Neil and Buzz, the President of the United States is in his office now and would like to say a few words to you. Over. That would be an honor. Go ahead, Mr. President. This is Houston out.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, I am sure they too join with America in recognizing what an immense feat this is. For one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this earth are truly one. One in their pride in what you have done.
Nixon was still a new president. He had been in office for only about 6 months, but he was a very controversial figure. And people took very great sides. Nobody loved him very much. A lot of people hated him. And he wanted so much to be liked, I think. And here was something that was non-controversial. And he grabbed hold of it and milked it like it was a Holstein cow.
This certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made. And thank you very much, and I look forward, all of us look forward to seeing you on the Hornet on Thursday. Look forward to that very much, Bill.
I was driving home, really, and just realized, man, we did it. And it was a great feeling, and to have been a part of that historic moment in human history was a humbling experience for me.
You do have to be rather careful. Sometimes it takes about 2 or 3 paces to make sure that you've got your feet underneath you.
If there's such a thing as pure joy in this world at achieving some goal, and you could take the purest of the pure joy and distill this thing and say, this is what happiness is about. This is how exquisite it could be. Just being there was something, much less doing something.
Your whole body bursts with passion at a thing like that. And that's the way I felt. I was, if I could have climbed into the TV set, I would have done so. I'm willing to predict to you that 200 years from now, 500 years from now, 10,000 years from now, the people of the future will look back and say, in July of 1969 was the greatest month and the greatest day in the history of mankind. It will never change, because on that day, on that evening, on that morning, mankind freed themselves from gravity. We've been clinging here on this planet for millions of years, and hoping someday to reach the moon. We dreamt about it when we were living in caves. We couldn't articulate it, but we looked up and said, what is that? What is that? And finally, we broke free, and the spirit of mankind soared into space on that night, and it will never stop soaring.
Port stage, engine arm ascent, proceed. Beautiful. 26, 36 feet per second up.
As they blasted off to rejoin Collins, they left behind the flag, a plaque, and the remains of the lunar module. They took with them 20 pounds of lunar rocks.
There may be a few regrets that I have in my life, and now's not the time to go into all of them, but one of them would be that if I did it again, I think I would be tempted very strongly to look out the window a lot more than I did during the mission. It would have been nice to have changed the roles where I could have been looking out the window all the time and controlling the spacecraft to land. That's just not the way it was scheduled to be. But I would say the next time, if I did have a chance to do it, I would probably try and sneak a look out the window just to be able to keep that in my mind for the rest of my life.
After 21 hours and 36 minutes on the moon, a perfect liftoff, and the astronauts are now in lunar orbit, ready to join for the journey home.
Personally, and reflecting the events of the past several days, a verse from the Psalms comes to mind to me. When I consider the heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon and the stars which thou hast ordained, what is man that thou art mindful of him? We'd like to give a special thanks to all those Americans who built those spacecraft, and to all the other people that are listening and watching tonight. God bless you. Good night from Apollo 11.
The Apollo program was the first thing that showed that it worked. In other words, it was like a baby crawling. It wasn't even a step. It was just a crawl. Neil Armstrong said that was the step for mankind there. It wasn't a step. That was just a crawl. I think that someday the salvation of mankind may rest in space.
I believe the entire environmental program, the movement, really got the stimulus from moving away from Earth and seeing Earth as a beautiful blue sphere, and yet looking at everything else we saw out there and seeing it barren and desolate and just devoid of all life. And here is this only sphere that we know of where humans can survive, and we better do something to take care of it.
So America has been to the moon and back safely and successfully. And we think perhaps in the process rediscovered itself and discovered that it can do anything it sets out to do. On the moon, to the planets, or in its own cities, in our own cities. Apollo 12 lies ahead in November. A new goal and new dangers as well as new rewards. And people who can and will do all that has to be done when they know.
After 8 days and 8 nights, squeezed into a spacecraft, the astronauts returned to a further 2.5 weeks confinement in quarantine.
Gee, you look great. You feel as good as you look? Feel great. Feel just perfect, Mr. President. Yeah. I was thinking, as you know, as you came down, and we knew it was a success, and it had only been 8 days, just a week, a long week, that this is the greatest week in the history of the world since the creation. Because as a result of what happened in this week, the world is bigger infinitely, and we just thank you for that.
After the Apollo 11 mission, there was still great residual interest in Apollo 12. Apollo 13, which was the one that they had to abort on the way to the moon, was a sort of a shock therapy to get people a little more interested. 14, they started doing ridiculous things like Alan Shepard hitting a golf ball. And by the time 17 was flown, and we finally got a geologist up there to tell us what everybody else had told us, that the moon is a cold and lonely place except when it's hot and lonely. What did we do for an encore after that? We did nothing, and rightly so.
I thought at the time that life as we had known it had begun to change, that this really was a new era for mankind, that space was a new ocean, as we used to say, and we would sail upon it, and that we would send men to the planets, and we'd learn to live and operate in space. Well, I read now high school textbooks, college textbooks, and I find a paragraph that says in 1969 Neil Armstrong was the first person to land on the moon. And then they go into something like the change in the National Labor Relations Act.
down in Houston, I was driving from my hotel over to the Space Center, and a little dog started chasing my car. And just because my mind works in crazy ways, I slowed down and stopped, and what's this dog gonna do if he catches this thing? And I watched in the rearview mirror. The dog came stalking over very carefully, sniffed the tire, marked it territorially, turned around and walked away. And at the end of the Apollo program, I thought, that is what we have done. We caught the moon, we peed on it, and we left.
And to find out more about the Apollo moon missions, log on to the BBC Archive website. And tomorrow night here on BBC4, we pay our regular monthly visit to the team at the Sky at Night. That's here at 7:30.
Roger, we copy. It was beautiful from here. Tranquility, over.